Have you ever wanted to play triads fluently across the whole neck, but you can't seem to figure it out? Well, until this video, because I'm going to make triads as simple as possible for you. You'll learn what a triad really is, the triad shapes that make it easy to play across the whole fretboard, and how to actually use triads in real music. Because in the end, that's really all that matters. My name is Simen, I've been playing guitar for over 15 years, have a degree in music, and built a learning platform playwithaplan.com, where guitar players are improving every day. To get the most out of this video, I recommend to download the free Triads workbook. There you get all the shapes and theory from this video in one simple place. Just click the link in the description to get it. Highly recommend. Alright, first I want to make sure you understand everything you're doing. So let's start with what is a triad. And it's actually quite straightforward. A triad is simply a chord consisting of 3 different notes. But you can't just pick 3 notes and then call it a triad, because it follows a very specific formula. And the simplest way to explain that is with a major scale. So let's use the C major scale as an example. And the formula for a triad is very simple. It's 1, 3, 5. That means in the major scale, we can first play a note, the first note. Then we skip a note and play the next note, the 3. Skip a note and then play the next note, the 5. And this is our triad. 1, 3, 5. And this formula is the same across the whole neck. So right now it's a C major triad because the first note is the note C. But let's say we move it up 2 frets to the note D and play the same pattern. Now it's suddenly a D major triad. We can do this across the whole neck. So for example from A, then it's an A major triad, and from G, a G major triad. Back to C major. Hopefully, all good so far. Then we also have different types of triads. Major and minor are the most important ones, so those are the ones we're going to cover in this video. We just looked at a major triad. But to get a minor triad, all you have to do is to lower the 3rd note with 1 fret. That's it. Now we get a minor triad. And again, the first note is C, so it's a C minor triad. And for this one as well, we can move it to, for example, D and get a D minor triad. Or to A and get A minor triad. Or we can of course play it completely different places on the neck as well. I can start on the note B on the D string and play a B minor triad. And so on. The next important thing to understand is that we can play a triad in 2 different ways. If you go back to the C major triad again, now I just played it melodically, and that means I play 1 note at a time. It's like a melody. But we can also play it harmonically, which means we play the triad like a chord. So all notes at the same time, but that's going to be hard with this fingering. So we need to change it slightly so we can play all the notes at the same time. For example, like this instead. So triad can be played melodically or harmonically. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. Melodically, harmonically. And there's one final thing that's important to understand on guitar that people don't talk a lot about. If you go back to the C major triad, and play it harmonically. These notes are the exact same as you play in the beginning of a normal C major chord. So this is also a triad. But the two last notes of this chord here are actually just repeating some of the notes we have already played. So technically, this is also a triad, even though we are playing 5 notes. But when we're talking about triads on guitar, we often refer to only 3 notes either way. So like this. That's just because guitarists like to make their own rules, basically. Now we understand what a triad is, so it's time for the good stuff, the triad shapes. As mentioned, there are different triads, but we're going to focus on the most important ones, major and minor, because they are the most useful, really. And triads will be easier if you know some basic bar chords, like these. That's just because bar chords and the triad shapes are very similar, but no worries if you don't know the bar chords yet. Let's start with the C major triads. I'm going to show you 3 big shapes you can use across the whole fretboard. First, you need to find the root note on the low E string. In this case, that's going to be the 8th fret of the low E string. And on the left side of this root note, we have one big shape. It's going to look like this. First, we have 8 on low E string. Then we get 7, 5, 5, 5, 3. Okay, so you might notice if you know bar chords, you are basically combining this shape and this shape to one big shape. And to play them as triads, all you want to do is to play 3 notes at a time. It's like this. Then the next 3 notes. And the next 3. And the next 3. All right. So all of those are important triad shapes. And before we move to the next shape, I want to quickly mention something called inversions. That just means the order you play the notes in. And since there are 3 notes, we have 3 different orders. If you play 1, 3, 5, we call it root position. Then, if you take the root, the 1, and move it on the top of the chord, then we get first inversion of this chord. Then, if we take the 3, this one, and take that one on top, then we get second inversion. So root position, first inversion, second inversion. Then it just repeats back to root position. If these inversions just confuses you, no worries, it's just some fancy names for the different triad shapes. But the important thing in this video is just the shapes themselves. Alright, let's look at the next shape. It's going to look very similar to this bar chord. The only difference is that we start 4 frets above the root note. So we start on 12, Right, so let's go through the whole shape. 12, 10, 10, 9, 8, 8. And again, to play them as triads, you just want to play 3 notes at a time. The third and final shape is very similar to this bar chord. But we start on a string below, so again on the low E string. On 15, it's a good way to find that shape is to first find a root note on the A string, which is on the 15th fret in this case. Then just go 1 string below. Okay, and this is the shape. 15, 15, 14, 12, 13, 12. And to play them as triads, just play 3 notes at a time. There's a lot of shapes to remember, so you're doing great. So first thing you want to do is to just get very comfortable with these shapes. Yeah, and so on. And eventually you can also start to combine them and play horizontally across the shapes as well. Pick any 3 strings and play a triad. Then try to move horizontally between the shapes. Then pick 3 other strings. This is tricky, so it's not something you're going to master straight away, so give it some time. And you can transfer this shape to all chords, of course. So let's say you want to play D major triads. Then you just have to find the root note D on the low E string. Then we have the exact same shapes from here. And so on. The trick is to be very aware of where you have your root note and play everything in relation to the root note. I know there's a lot to think about, so to make everything simpler, I recommend to download the free workbook, the Triads workbook, if you haven't yet. It's just going to make everything a bit simpler. The link is in the description. Now you might think, that was just major. What do we do about minor? And I'm very glad you asked, because it's time to look at minor triads. And good news, we're going to use the exact same shapes. The only thing we're going to do is to take the note 3, so the third, and just take it 1 fret down. So let's start with the first shape. It's going to look like this. We start with 8. Now we get 6 instead of 7. 5, 5, 4 instead of 5. 3. Then again, you want to play 3 notes at a time to actually play the triads. It's very important that you understand that these shapes are the same, we're just changing the third. Very important. Let's go to shape number 2, and this is going to be very similar to this normal C minor chord. But here, we don't start 4 frets above, but we start 3 frets above. So on 11. Then we get 10, 10, 8, 8, and 8. And to play the triads, play 3 notes at the same time. Nice. Then we go to the last minor shape, which again is very similar to major, we're just changing the third. We start on 15. 15 again. Now we get 13 instead of 14. 12. 13. 11 instead of 12. And to play the triads, play, as always, 3 notes at the same time. So just practice these 3 shapes in both major and minor. And when you can do that, then you can play triads across the whole fretboard. Little tip for the shapes and all the progress so far. So what you have just learned are, in my opinion, the most important triad shapes. But the thing about triads is that they can be used in so many different ways. That means they can also be used in very advanced ways, which is beyond the scope of this video. For example, you can play them melodically across the whole neck. So basically like arpeggios. So my point is, triads can be played and used in very many different ways. Learning guitar on YouTube can be totally fine, by the way, but it's a bit random. You just click a video here and there. It lacks a clear step-by-step roadmap. So if you want that, you might like my learning platform, playwithaplan.com. It's just a very simple step-by-step roadmap you can follow and get better on guitar. I'll leave the link in the description if you're interested. Next, let's take the triad shapes you just learned and look at how to use the triads in real music. Because in the end, that's really all that matters. And we're going to look at 2 different use cases. First, triads as chords, and then triads in soloing. So let's start with triads as chords. Let's say you get this chord progression, C, F, G, C. And maybe a piano is already playing those low chords, so you don't need to play them as well. In that case, triads are amazing, because then you don't need to play a full chord. And the first thing I recommend to do when you get some chords is to just get comfortable with the triad shapes of those chords. So we have the C major, which we have already looked at, and so on. So the next chord is F major, so we need to find the root note, F. From here, we have the exact same shape. And we want to find the 2 other shapes as well. I'll just play them very quickly now so you can see them. We have the second shape. And a third shape. Then we have G major. So first we want to find a note G. I'm going to play it from the 15th fret. And again, we have the exact same shapes. The second shape. A third shape. It's a bit tricky to keep track of all of these shapes. It's a lot to think about. So feel free to just start with 1 shape at a time and then gradually introduce number 2 and 3 as well. Anyway, a good way to practice is to take this chord progression and try to find some different triads for each of the chords. So let's pick 3 strings. We're going to pick the D string, G, and B. Let's start with a C triad. You can pick whatever one you like. Let's use this one. Next, let's find the F chord. And what you can do is to use the same shape for all of the chords. And then G, back to C. That's one approach, but when you get more comfortable, then you can try to keep the triads as close as possible. So look at this. We start with C, then find F close. You can choose this one. Find G close. You can use, for example, this one. And back to C. So it will sound like this. And to make the practice more fun, you could add a little rhythm, for example, like this. Okay, and then play through the triads. Then, if you're having a good hair day and in general feel very good, then you can try to move the C major to the next triad shape. Do the same thing from here. Just keep going. This is challenging to do on the spot, so take your time, no rush. Next, let's look at triads, but in soloing. This is really very similar to what we just did. First, you want to know where you have your different triads. So as example, let's use these ones. Right, and step one is to try to solo, but only use notes from these triads. Because now you can actually hear what chords you're soloing over without hearing the chords themselves. But it might be a bit too much to play only triad shapes. So the next thing you want to do is to also add in some notes from a scale. In this case, you can, for example, use the C major pentatonic scale, which is the same as the A minor pentatonic scale. So this one. Right, so mix that shape with the triads. Let's try that. So that is how you can use triads in soloing. Combine triad shapes and a scale. Again, this is not something you just learn in a day. It's a bit tricky, but you can do it. And since you made it to the end, you're actually a special snowflake. And therefore, in the next video, I'm going to share 5 of the most important lessons you'll ever learn on guitar. Bye!